70. 70 countries are now going, wait a minute, Mr. President, can we talk? Hey, wait, we want to do a deal. We want to negotiate. You see, when you stand firm, when you tell folks you ain't going to take advantage of us no more, it's amazing the things that happen. And I know these tariffs are going to work because the same attitude, the same posture worked for the border. You see, none of you liberals want to talk about the border anymore. Prior to Trump getting in office, you kept telling us it was unfixable. They needed more legislation. You needed more government. No. All you needed was to impose the laws you had. All you needed was someone who would stand up and say, hey, stop sending them, take them back, or here's what we're going to do. And because of that, illegal immigration is almost unmeasurable. It's down to nothing. No one talks about it anymore because Trump stood up. That's what he's doing on these tariffs. He is telling these countries enough is enough. You have overcharged us. You've taken advantage of us for decades. We're going to start charging you back.
How tariffs work. The government implements a tariff. The importing business pays the tariffs directly to the government. I am not uneducated. I am aware this tariff may raise the price of the product they are importing. You all assume that because we support the president, we do not understand tariffs. You understand what they say about assuming, right? I find it laughable that the left will tell me I don't understand tariffs when I have done numerous videos explaining tariffs. I have held lives explaining tariffs. I'm over it. Tariffs are benefiting our country. Economists were wrong. I do not understand why you guys have such a hard time letting our president and our country have a win. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This will be my last video ever explaining tariffs. God bless you.
Why are you voting for Trump for? Because I'm fucking tired of being broke.
I bet y'all don't think Donald Trump's a liar now. No taxes on tips, overtime, and Social Security passed the House to...
Holy shit. I just really hope, again, this big, beautiful bill passes so I can bring home a paycheck.
I love this for you. I love this. Nice. I love this for you. I love to see you fail. I love to see your family be affected and hurt because you voted for Trump. Yeah, I voted for Trump. Absolutely. Did I know he was going to increase the tariffs? Yes, I did. So to wish ill on someone and to love the fact that they're suffering, to love the fact that their family is being negatively affected because I didn't vote the same way that you did is fuck.
So by voting for Trump, you actually did want to hurt other families and people in general. You just didn't think it was going to affect your own family.
Sometimes things is 4 times what they was a year ago. A roast I used to get for $12, $15, $35. It's awful.
Everything, you know, just keeps going up.
Well, I used to spend $40 a week. Now it's $140 or something like that. I just don't think it's going to go down for a long time. They're not concerned with people like us.
They said these tariffs that they've got on, it's going to bring prices down. They're not, because it's going to have to charge more to make up for them having to pay to bring it in. And I just say everything's going downhill.
Until the federal government steps in to save them, farmers have no one to turn to but God.
Farmers, in my opinion, dear Lord, and it's only my opinion, are closer to thee than anyone else on this earth because we deal with your earth every day. Dear Lord, we're hurting, dear Lord. We can't help what's happened to us.
Folks, MAGA farmers in Arkansas have officially entered the chat. And by chat, I mean the FAFO group therapy circle, where the only requirement for entry is voting against your own self-interest. These guys are the latest victims of their own hate and ignorance, and now they're turning to God. Yep, apparently God is the one who wrecked their farms, because if there's one thing MAGA excels at, it's outsourcing blame. Gaslighting God? Only MAGA could even attempt that. But hold on, it gets juicier. These same bootstrap preaching, welfare shaming, tough love conservatives are now asking the government for, wait for it, a handout. Yes, the no free rides folks suddenly want a free tractor ride out of the mess they made. If irony were edible, they wouldn't need food stamps. What really tickles me is how they're now blaming the tariffs, as if the tariffs just woke up one morning and imposed themselves like some demonic liberal agenda. They still won't name the real culprit, Daddy Orange himself. Trump is still their untouchable Lord and Savior, even as their crops rot and their bank accounts shrivel like a raisin in the Arkansas sun. And now we're seeing this hilarious rebrand where they're ditching the red hats and practically shouting, "We voted to be racist, not to be poor." But, surprise, surprise, choices come with consequences, and the Arkansas farmers are now harvesting exactly what they planted. Let's roll the clips, shall we? Grab your popcorn, your holy water, and maybe a tiny violin. It's about to get poetic.
Almost everything that could go wrong for Arkansas farmers did go wrong this year. And it's so bad that many are facing bankruptcy or even the closure of farms that have been passed down for generations. A dismal global market and plunging commodity prices mean there's little to no hope of breaking even for many farmers, even as sky-high input costs rise because of inflation and now tariffs. Today, Arkansas farmers gathered to share their struggles with staffers from the state's congressional delegation, pleading for Arkansas lawmakers on Capitol Hill and the governor to convince President Trump to provide emergency funding to help them make it to next year.
We have to have ad hoc payments right now to make it through this year.
If there's no emergency funding this year, there will be 1 out of 3 farmers will file bankruptcy.
Until the federal government steps in to save them, farmers have no one to turn to but God.
Well. It's Friday, baby, and we do love a good cup of FAFO tea, and even though we've already poured one FAFO today, we've got another cup in the brew via the way of the farmer in the US of A. That's right, they voted overwhelmingly for Daddy Dumpy Pants. See, the Republicans convinced their ass that China was going to come in and swoop up and take their farmland from them. Yes, they've been telling y'all that lie for quite some time. That China owns all of our farmland, and what they don't already own, they're coming for. So vote for me, and I will save your farm, baby. And as of today, farmers are finding out that there's no money about. They can't even get a hold of the things that they need to do the farming, dear. Not the workforce, not the fertilizer, hell, not even the seed. And they're looking towards the government and the orange fool and JD too for a subsidy or two. But I encourage you to remember that they took away all your subsidies, dear, when they decided to cut into EBT. A whole lot of EBT subsidies go to our farmers, baby, but they cut those subsidies. So you can ask and you can beg all you want to. What's going to end up happening to you is you're going to be encouraged to go once again to a bank, friend, and take out a loan that you will never be able to pay back. And what you're not going to know, what the bank's not going to tell you, but I will tell you right here, dear, because JD has been doing this for almost 2 years. Yes, JD Vance with his toddler pants and his queer stance, the Maybelline queen who has future dictator dreams. For over the past 2 years, he's been coming for farmland in the US of A. And his buddy, Peter Thiel, honey, maybe you should look into some of the banks that they own, dear, and some of the banks that they are invested into, and some of the banks that they just might be on the board of, dear. And I want to remind you about the app that JD had out and about, tracking farmland, and encouraging you to sign up, man. Yes, he got all the stats and all the facts and all the data he need on what farms he could buy up expeditiously once they crashed the agriculture industry here in the US of A. So if you're worried about losing your farm today, you can thank JD for that, baby. I don't feel sorry for you today because we've been warning you, the farmer, for years and years and years, baby. The only people who have allowed you to have subsidies and supported you in times of despair were the Democrats sitting up there. But you believed the lie from the fucking orange guy and the Maybelline queen, too. So I do not feel sorry for you. They told y'all that they were going to privatize everything in the US of A. They made you believe that that was the way, and you thought it was just going to be the post office, baby, and education and health care. You thought the food was going to slip by the orange guy and his privatizing play today? And by the way, it's not even the orange guy that's into this privatization play. That is directly J.D. Vance and Peter Thiel that want to privatize all the industries in the US of A, including the agriculture industry, boo. And y'all handed it over expeditiously to that fucking faux hillbilly who has never broke his back a day in his life. That is a fucking fact. No calluses will ever be found on that crew. They pay immigrants to do those kinds of jobs for them, and they took the immigrants from you.
This right here is exactly what happens when you choose ignorance over evidence, vibes over facts, and Fox News over common sense. When you refuse to ask hard questions and instead double down on whatever makes you feel superior, congratulations, you just got played by the billionaires who never once cared about you. Let's talk about America's favorite political pastime: divide and rule. You see, in the great game of US politics, they've convinced an entire demographic that the biggest threat to their freedom, farms, and future isn't greed, corruption, or corporations, it's immigrants. Yep, undocumented workers. The same people they hired to keep their farms running are now supposedly the root of all evil. So what's the solution? Elect Mr. Tangerine Man and poof, all your problems vanish, right? Wrong. While MAGA farmers were busy chanting about tariffs and building walls, the billionaires were doing what billionaires do best: buying everything. Trump recently hosted a cozy little billionaire boys club with VIPs like Bill Gates, you know, the guy collecting farmland like it's Pokemon. And now, according to Madam Christina over there, folks like J.D. Vance and his corporate sugar daddies are in on it too. They've been slowly and strategically acquiring farmland while MAGA farmers were distracted, terrified of brown people picking strawberries. And now, some of them are at risk of losing ancestral land that's been in their families for generations, because they bought into a lie. They made hate and fear their compass, and, surprise, surprise, it led them straight off a cliff. Meanwhile, black farmers, the same ones the governments never really supported, stayed grinding. They knew how to survive without handouts, and you won't see them crying about tariffs on TikTok. Just saying. So yeah, it's FAFO season in Arkansas, and TikTok is having a field day, no pun intended. The clips are wild, the tears are flowing, and the irony is marinating like a good southern barbecue.
By myself, I can't afford any help. I farm with paid-for equipment. All my tractors are 50 years old, and I can't hardly make this deal work. How's the guys farming 5 and 10,000 with 20 hands and $1 million combines and $1 million drills going to make it work?
But for Brown, there's something that rounds out all the issues that they are facing: the tariffs.
I think the tariffs are the ice cream on the cake of a perfect storm. When you try to sell a product, okay, U.S. soybeans leaving New Orleans without the tariff to China are cheaper than Brazilian soybeans at the current market. But when you put the tariff on top of them, Brazilian beans are cheaper.
So how can this be fixed?
In the short term, they have no choice but to mail us a check. I don't know a farmer that likes the check program. Nobody wants to take taxpayer dollars. But nobody.
Sir, you said, I love you. Mr. Trump, I need to see the fruit of your love.
And I've never been as worried as I am now about whether or not my kids and grandkids will be able to carry on. I just would like to see somebody help us get our markets back. We need our exports, and we just need to be paid for what we do. And that's not happening. And we're in real trouble.
Aww. How precious. He's begging for daddy's love. The same daddy who cheated on all his wives, lied under oath, and probably can't remember his own kids' names unless they're writing checks to him. And this man really thinks Daddy Trump is gonna come save his little farm? Baby, if he didn't care about his actual children, what makes you think he cares about his political bastards? He called you people stupid for questioning about the Epstein files, remember? But wait, did I hear one of them say nobody wants to take taxpayer money? That's cute. That's real cute. Because when it's MAGA crying for help, suddenly it's patriotic and brave. But when someone with a disability, who can't even stand for more than 10 minutes, asks for health care, nah, they're lazy freeloaders who need to work 80 hours a month just to prove they're real Americans, right? And let's not even get into food stamps. When single moms or minimum wage workers say they need help feeding their kids, it's suddenly a problem. Waste of taxpayer dollars, welfare queens, all that nonsense. But when y'all are on TikTok with tears in your eyes, blaming Biden for the consequences of your own votes, suddenly it's not about bootstraps anymore. It's about bailouts, empathy, and prayer circles. Bootstraps don't seem to work when you're knee-deep in consequences, huh? Anyway, let's watch some more. This FAFO saga just keeps getting better.
I need all the farmers for Trump to come to the front of the class because I hear you're asking the rest of us for money because Donald Trump's tariffs are going to financially ruin you. And what's so funny about that is, didn't Donald Trump and his tariffs bring you to the brink last time? Because he got you into a trade war with China. And now China is basically cutting off corn, soy, all agricultural products, and they're looking to other places like Canada, Brazil, anywhere else they can get agricultural products, and U.S. farmers are the ones left holding the bag. There's a soybean farmer that's been making the rounds here, and he's saying, I voted for Donald Trump 3 times, and I was glad to, and I like his policies, but these tariffs are hurting us, and I need you to stop this, Mr. President. And they're asking us for another bailout, the taxpayers. Another bailout because they decided to vote for Donald Trump for a 3rd time. That's a fuck around and find out, my friends. And I'm not here to help financially support these people. They want to bitch and moan, all these people on the right, about people being on welfare and people needing handouts. And well, farmers, wear those bootstraps that you guys like to talk about all the time. Why don't you find them and pull yourselves up from them? Because we are tired of bailing you out. I understand that if you don't get bailed out and these tariffs ruin you guys, it's going to have a huge impact on the rest of us. But I knew that before the election. I knew that when I was stumping for Kamala Harris and telling people not to vote for Donald Trump. So you're fuck around and find out. I hope it's a little more personal because you guys decided to continue to vote against your own interest and cut off your nose to spite your face. It's time you sit in it for a minute.
China is no longer importing soybeans or beef from the U.S. What's going to happen next? Farmers in Indiana and Nebraska and other states in the country are going to lose their farms. And when they do, corporations are going to buy up that land. The tariffs aren't bringing industry back to the U.S. Tariffs are not going to help small businesses. Tariffs are not going to help farmers. Tariffs are going to help corporations and more rich people like Trump. So you know what? Keep cheering it on, MAGA. Keep cheering it on because you're cheering on your own demise.
Caleb Ragland is the president of the American Soybean Association, and he just wrote an op-ed for a right-wing publication, and he said in there, quote, "Like many of my fellow farmers, I voted for President Donald Trump in the past 3 elections. The president won me over with his commitment to business-friendly tax cuts, as well as his track record of reducing regulation and cutting government spending. I am one of 500,000 soybean farmers in America who feels the pain. As a businessman, President Trump must know how urgent this is." Does he? Is he? Anyway, he goes on to say, the current trade war with China is a gamble with American livelihoods, especially for farmers, those of us who grew up with soil and sweat, who can't imagine doing anything else. Mr. President, I hope you hear our plea. Please make a deal with China now. Yeah, so he doesn't get it. He doesn't get it. There is no deal to be had. As of now, the majority of Trump's base is sticking with him on these tariffs. But it's gonna catch up with them. They're gonna realize sooner or later there are no deals. He is not the deal maker. He screwed up. And no, China is not begging and pleading and knocking on our door.
70 countries are now going, wait a minute, Mr. President, can we talk? Hey, wait, we want to do a deal. We want to negotiate. You see, when you stand firm When you tell folks you ain't going to take advantage of us no more, it's amazing the things that happen.
I love this comment. You are absolutely correct. What white Arkansas farmers and farmers across this country are doing is they're asking for welfare. They're asking for a handout from the federal government. But language and terminology is often racialized and weaponized in the United States of America. Because in the reporting, it's not called welfare and handouts. It's called subsidies, aid, and assistance. But whenever Black Americans ask the federal government for help, or when programs are designed to help Black American communities, it's called welfare and handouts. See the difference? Same thing, different terminology, different language used. But that's what's going on with not only white farmers in Arkansas, but all across the nation. Because, see, they grew rich and fat, many of those farms for generations, receiving loans and other forms of welfare from the federal government. And someone said we shouldn't wish for the downfall of these farms, because how will we get our food? What many people in this nation fail to understand is that most of the food that we get from supermarkets and grocery stores are from large corporate farms already. And many of them are going to grow larger when these folks declare bankruptcy. That was part of the plan in Project 2025. That these white people, blinded by their racism and bigotry, decided to ignore and vote against their own best interest. And now they are facing the consequences of their vote and their racism. And I love it for them. Remember, you're not seeing Black farmers on television wringing their hands and crying to the government to please help us. If we don't get emergency aid, welfare, then we won't be able to stay in business. We won't be able to pass down our farmland to the next generation. Good. Declare bankruptcy, because it is obvious that you don't know how to run a business. You were just being dependent on all of the handouts that you had been receiving from the federal government for years. That Black farmers, because of racism, were denied. And Black farmers, yes, they're being affected by what's going on, but many of them have been forced to become more self-reliant and sufficient. Gotta love it for the white farmers. Karma may take a while. Oh, but when she comes around, she does not play.
You mean to tell me that these farmers in Arkansas are holding their hands out for a government handouts? Oh, hell no. You already had your handouts. That would be called WIC and food stamps, because WIC and food stamps are actually government subsidies. That's why they're separate. WIC was a farm subsidy for milk farmers, and food stamps was a subsidy for food farmers. You already had those handouts, and you were too busy worried about the people that were actually also benefiting from those handouts. You see, one program benefited two different groups, but you were too busy making sure that they didn't get it. Now you don't have it. So I suggest you just pull yourselves up by your bootstraps, because we're not really worried about it. Because according to the people that know this, about 25 to 30% of farmers are going to lose their farm, which means there's still plenty of farmers around that will be able to grow our food and give it to us. So we don't really care if you lose your farm. You put your hands back in your pocket and stop asking for handouts, because you sure as fuck didn't want to give it to anybody else. You only wanted it for yourself, and when you take from other people, you go down along with them. We're interconnected. So I hope you starve, you're homeless, and then the military sent out to come round you up and put you in prison for it.
I read an article yesterday about how farmers in Arkansas are organizing to beg the Trump administration for federal financial aid. because they are being economically devastated by Trump's policies, most specifically the tariffs. And you know, it's hard for me to cultivate empathy and compassion in this situation. I think the knee-jerk response is, well, you get what you vote for. You were okay with hurting other people, but you're not okay when it's you. Fuck around and find out. All those sorts of things. And, it's not that those sentiments are invalid. I mean, here you have a group of people who overwhelmingly shake their fist at socialist policies, Marxist policies, which of course they don't know what those are, while at the same time they've got their hand out. They are furious at black and brown people living off government welfare. But here, they expect it, which is the epitome of white supremacist, white privilege, resenting other people for needing what you think you're entitled to. But I think, I have got to try to move beyond those sorts of resentful sentiments because I'm a Christian. And Jesus, the gospel says that when Jesus saw the crowds, he had compassion and pity for them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. Sheep are stupid animals that are pretty much incapable of thinking for themselves. They need somebody watching out for them. Trump has preyed upon the stupidity and the ignorance and the racism of people like these farmers in Arkansas. And it doesn't excuse their ignorance. It certainly doesn't excuse their racism. There should be consequences. But at the same time, these people have been exploited and manipulated, and now they are hurting. And I feel like there's got to be still room for compassion and empathy, even though it certainly does not come natural to me.
Wait a minute. So farmers are suing Trump because they want their stimulus checks back. Oh, no. Y'all voted for this, remember? Elections have consequences, baby. So here's the tea. Joe Biden and Congress put grants together to give money to farmers. Trump gets in and what does he do? Cuts contracts, snatches the money, and leaves the farmers high and dry. But now the same folks who cheered him on are like, we want our money. Now let's connect the dots real quick on something. For decades, farmers have been living on government handouts, billions in subsidies to keep their farms afloat. While some of those same farmers turn around and point their fingers at families on food stamps. And they have the nerve to call them welfare queens. Nah, let's call it what it is. The biggest welfare queens in American society are wearing overalls, not wigs and heels. And here's the irony. Farmers love to preach about pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. Well, guess what, farmers? Take your own advice. If you can't sustain your farm without taxpayer bailouts, maybe farming ain't your ministry, boo. Because my tax dollars and your tax dollars shouldn't be propping up businesses that can't sustain on their own. So no, farmers shouldn't get a dime. Elections have consequences and farmers are finally feeling it. What do you think? So should we keep footing the bill for people who keep vilifying other people who depend on assistance? Or is it finally time that farmers actually live by their own rules? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I want to hear if y'all truly are done funding America's real welfare queens.
You know what MAGA does best? Gaslight. MAGA folks will look you dead in the eye with their house on fire behind them, flames tickling the flag they claim to love, and say, "This is fine." They will literally be the ones who light the match, toss it in the barn, lock the doors, and when you show up with a bucket of water, they'll ask you why you hate freedom. They'll swear up and down that you're the one who's brainwashed. You're the one who doesn't get how economics work. You're the one who's been drinking the liberal Kool-Aid, while they're out here sipping the concentrated orange juice straight from the jug. And I mean that literally, because the script they follow, it's not even subtle. It's ripped straight from the Cult of Personality playbook, authored, printed, and sold for $99.99 by their messiah in a red tie, President Taco D, as Philip on TikTok hilariously calls him. This man could show up to a pig farm, sell them Trump-branded slop buckets at double the price, slap a bald eagle on it, and they'd thank him for the privilege of being swindled. Then 2 weeks later, when the pigs are dead and the EPA is at the door, they'll blame Biden, immigrants, China, and Beyonce. But never Trump. Because somehow, in this twisted logic loop of gaslighting and delusion, he is never the villain. He is always the misunderstood hero, the victim, the persecuted Messiah standing trial for your sins. And the people? The farmers crying about tariffs? The business owners begging for bailouts? The women who voted for him, made merch about it, posted about it, went viral for it, and are now weeping about how hard life is? They are not victims of some cosmic accident. They're victims of ideology-induced amnesia. Because here's what's wild. They know what happened. They see what's going on. But like an abusive relationship, they keep going back. Because Trump, like any seasoned manipulator, knows how to keep people trauma-bonded to the narrative. He'll say, I alone can fix it. He'll say, you're not struggling because of me, you're struggling because of them. And they'll believe it. Again. These farmers, y'all, they didn't just vote once. Many voted 3 times. Some were out here like, I voted for him in 2016, then again in 2020, and again in my dreams during J6 wearing camo and holding a flag that says don't tread on me while standing on a Chinese-made tractor paid for by a government subsidy. And you know what? They'd do it again. Because the MAGA mindset isn't built on logic or policy or long-term thinking. It's built on vibes. Angry, nostalgic, weaponized vibes. And those vibes are manufactured by someone who knows exactly how to keep them just hungry enough, just angry enough, just desperate enough to never question the source of their pain. It's classic narcissism wrapped in political cosplay. And farmers, many of whom used to rely on undocumented labor, fair market trade, and international exports, were sold a fantasy that they could somehow exist in a bubble. That their land, their legacy, and their lifestyle would be protected by building walls, closing borders, and screaming, America first. But guess what? You can't eat a slogan. You can't pay your mortgage with nationalism. And tariffs? They don't work like MAGA told you they would. They're not an economic punishment for China, they're a tax on you, the farmer, the buyer, the seller, the everyday American. So while Trump stood on a podium and talked about beating China, billionaire buddies like Bill Gates, J.D. Vance, and Peter Thiel were quietly buying up the land under your boots. And now? You're crying about how the government won't help you. You're blaming policies you voted for. You're asking for prayer from the same people you mocked when they asked for justice. It's like setting your neighbor's house on fire, then showing up with a hose and saying, wow, this is terrible. Can I stay at your place? And look, I don't say this just to dunk on struggling people, because I know many of you were lied to. I know the fear machine is powerful. I know religion was used to program loyalty, and the media was tailored to your bias, and your church probably has a Trump flag next to the cross. But here's what I won't do. Pretend you didn't have choices. You had them, and you still do. And until MAGA America learns to sit with accountability, not as punishment but as clarity, the loop will continue. Gaslight, deny, project, repeat. So let me leave you with this. MAGA isn't just a movement, it's a mindset. It's a way of seeing the world that demands blind allegiance over rational thought. It thrives on rage, feeds on fear, and scapegoats every mirror it doesn't like. And that's how we ended up here. With farmers blaming Biden for Trump's tariffs, small business owners crying about Trump's tax breaks for the wealthy, and evangelical moms wondering why their daughters can't afford college after voting for the man who gutted education funding. You wanted the kingdom, but not the consequences. You wanted control, but not the cost. You wanted to live in a movie where America was always the hero, but real life doesn't care about your script. And so, as we wrap this up, I'll leave you with a clip that proves beyond a shadow of a doubt MAGA is built on gaslighting. See you in the next one. Like, comment, and share if you learned something. And remember, don't vote for the leopard if you don't want your face eaten.
I don't think the place exists.
What?
Because it doesn't. It's called Judea and Samaria. It's not
So
called Palestine.
You don't believe that Palestine have the right to exist?
No, everyone has a right to exist. Show me where it is. It's a non-existent place.
Okay, yeah, I don't think we're gonna.
That's why
agree
we're on
that.
different planets, right? What is the national identity of Palestine? Educate me.
Palestinians.
What is that?
Like, what do you mean? What is that?
Yeah, what ethnicity are they?
Arabs?
Okay, so all Arabs are Palestinians?
No, but they are Arabs. What you trying to say? What is your point?
I'm trying to say, because at what point does somebody become a Palestinian?
When he was born in Palestine, or if his parents are Palestinians?
Again, this is why we're talking past each other.
What you trying to say?
I don't think the place exists.
What?
Because it doesn't. It's called Judea and Samaria. It's not called Palestine.
You don't believe that Palestine have the right to exist?
No, everyone has a right to exist. Show me where it is. It's a non-existent place.
Okay, yeah, I don't think we're gonna.
That's why we're on different planets, right?
My first two customers this morning were Israeli men, asking if we had any literature specifically about Jerusalem. And I got to say, yeah, we do. If you can't read backwards, that says Dr. Robinson's biblical research in, yes, Palestine. Yeah, they weren't happy. They were not happy. And I was specifically even less happy when I whipped out the second volume in it and showed them that date. No, that's not the print date. The print date is 1856. Yeah, so what? Almost like 100 years before your sham ethno-state was founded? Literally 10 out of 10 would recommend pissing off Israelis first thing in the morning.
I'm gonna say it. Just because you see images of dead children, as disgusting and frustrating and upsetting as it is, does not automatically make a war unjust.